Please rise for invocation by Pastor Mike Swingle of the First Baptist Church of Harbor Oaks, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for another day. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to be here and to conduct business, Father. And I pray that you would be with each and every leader that sits at this table. Father God, I pray a blessing upon each one of them. And Father, that as they conduct the leadership business, Lord, I just ask that you would give them the wisdom and the knowledge, Lord, that they need to be able to serve this city in a faithful way. Father, I pray for all the business that's conducted here tonight and ask you, Father, that you would guide this process. And Father, that once again, Lord, everything that is done here will be done in an honorable and honest way, Father, for the citizens of Port Orange. Thank you, Lord, for the leadership that is given here, and I pray a blessing upon them. In Christ's name I do pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Ford.
Present.
Councilmember Bastian.
Here.
Councilmember Stiltner. Vice Mayor Tremont.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here. We have four of us. We have a quorum. We move on to item 4, Florida City Government Week proclamation. I'm getting good at reading these proclamations. I've had plenty of practice today. Whereas city government is the government closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents. And whereas city government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to and the understanding of its many responsibilities. And whereas city government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along their understanding of public services and their benefits. And whereas the Florida City Government Week is a very important time to recognize the important role played by city government in our lives. And whereas this week offers an important opportunity to spread the word of all the citizens of Florida that they can shape and influence this branch of government which is closest to the people. And whereas the Florida League of Cities and its member cities have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information. And our city wants to also use this week to emphasize the importance of volunteering and giving back, because volunteering strengthens communities, solves problems, and improves lives. And the final whereas, Florida City Government Week offers an important opportunity to convey to all citizens of Florida that they can shape and influence government through their civic involvement and positively impact lives by volunteering. Now, therefore, I, Donald O. Burnett, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, Florida, do hereby recognize the week of October 21st through 27th coming up as Florida City Government Week, and is hereby declared with my signature in the seal of the city and on this day and in this place. Y'all can clap now. Jake, I think you slid a couple of whereases in there extra for me.
Well, he knows how good you are at it, so he had to, make sure you were.
Might be an indication of Matt Jones being on the dais.
I don't know.
Ah, yeah, there we
King of the
go.
whereases.
Consent
There we go.
agenda, public comments on consent agenda items. Any consent agenda items that the public would like to speak to? Now's your chance. There being none, need a motion to approve the agenda for the meeting for this evening.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I'd like to pull one, Mayor.
Okay, we're approving the agenda, not the consent agenda, so we'll do that next. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda. You like the motion to pull which one?
It might have been in the public hearing, excuse me. Where's that,
What was the subject?
the ring?
8A.
8A.
It's the first one under bids.
8A.
Yeah, I'd like to pull that. Motion to approve 8A.
Motion to pull 8A?
Yes.
I'll
We have a
second.
motion to pull 8A from the consent agenda for discussion. We have a second from Councilman Bastian. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any others? Can I have a motion for the approval of the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the remainder of the consent agenda. Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. 8A, approval of memorandum of understanding with Ring LLC on behalf of the City of Port Orange and the Port Orange Police Department. It's all yours, Chase.
Yeah, I don't have so much of an issue with it, but I just want to get a couple answers before I go forward and make some clarity to any residents that might have a question or two about this. Mr. Jones, can you give a brief explanation as to what this is here?
Yes, this MOU for the Port Orange Police Department to enter into an agreement with Ring. So this is, Ring is the popular doorbell app that also has the camera functions. This would give officers of the Port Orange Police Department access to receive information that is volunteered by citizens who have those Ring systems and the Ring app, so that instead of having to send an officer out, question people, they can direct drive, send information to the police department for investigatory reasons. So it provides a little bit more efficiency, utilizing technology to get information that's volunteered by citizens.
So I understand it correctly. Some suspicious activity is taking place in a neighborhood. Somebody decides who has this app and has this camera in their door. They can upload it and send it to the police department, and then because we give approval, the officers now have the permission to view that for whatever purpose.
Correct.
Investigation purposes, right?
Yes, direct access to the Ring app.
And it's 100% voluntary.
That's correct as well. We can't require it. We can't, go access Ring app or Ring videos of neighborhoods. It's only for the folks who have that app and that Ring system to send voluntarily to the police department.
All right, so if a police officer wants to use it, goes up and knocks on the door, to say, can we check this out? No one is bound to, they're not bound to allow them to view any certain video, even though they may have
Voluntary.
given approval in the past.
Completely voluntary, be on a video by video basis.
So why do they need our permission to do this? If a cop can already go up to a door and knock on the door and say, hey, we notice you have surveillance cameras, do you mind if we take a look and see what happened? Why do they need our approval to do this?
This is the approval for the agreement itself, for the city to enter into the agreement, so authorizing the chief to execute the agreement. And this just takes a step out of that process. So rather than having to send an officer out and take that officer off the street, this is an opportunity for us to receive it directly through the app, through our own access point, and Ring is allowing us to have
Without
that
us
access.
having to contact Ring with an individual request every time this comes
So
up.
the person could say, hey, I had a package delivered, somebody stole it, here's the footage, and they can just send it electronically right to the PD.
That easy.
Perfect.
So we're clear, there's no privacy violation with anything of this nature. It's 100% voluntary.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I needed.
Okay. Any other questions?
How are the people gonna be notified that, like, we have this, and they're able to do that, like, through Ring or through that next door
I think it's in the app. There's I think they call it the Neighbor app. So Ring has an application that has a plugin for reporting something
I
to
gotcha.
local police departments.
Good deal.
Any other questions? May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. Brings us to citizens' participation agenda portion, item 13. Request by the Vineyard Homeowners Association to reduce the application fee to actual cost for a variance application. Who's presenting on this? Come on up.
I'm Michael McGarvey. I'm the treasurer of the Vineyards of Port Orange Homeowners Association. There was an email submitted by Tim Berman. Is that in your possession?
He's our community development director.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay,
It was in the packet, yeah.
good. I've kind of written my own statement that summarizes all of it, so maybe, is that the best way to proceed?
Tell you what, just because we're on the record, if you want, I will read Peggy's request.
Sure.
So that everybody knows what we're talking about. This was Peggy Kamashak, is that her name?
Yes.
License, this is your CAM,
Yes.
making the request on your behalf to us, to whom it may concern. I've been asked to draft a letter on behalf of the Vineyards Homeowners Association to request a variance to remove the trees along Taylor Road and replace with a landscaping plan. The trees have become a huge burden to the association since the roots are destroying the retaining walls and the sidewalk. We're submitting this application, the plan to improve the site with the landscaping, the survey of the owners who are in agreement for removing the trees, and the photos of the damage done by the tree roots. The trees are overgrown, which is contributing to the liability of the association with pedestrians walking or riding bikes along the sidewalk. In addition, this will be a huge financial burden to the association, removing the trees, repairing the drip line, and the cost of new landscaping, which will cost over $15,000 in labor and materials. We are requesting that most of the money that we submitted with this application be returned with the association. Thank you in advance for your time in reviewing our proposed plan. We hope that we will agree this is necessary plan for the association, the beautification of the city of Port Orange. And we were talking about, nope, that's the next item. Going backwards. The fee waiver request, we're reducing it from $900 to $675.18, which is the actual calculated staff cost. I just want to clarify that that is your request.
Evidently, yes, that is the request.
Okay. That's what I'm reading in my, I'm reading
Okay, so
out
they
too.
paid 900, then we'd be refunding 225 or 224 and change.
Vineyards Homeowners Association requests that the City Council reduce the $900 variance application fee to the actual staff cost of review. The estimated cost for staff's review of the application is $675.18. According to the Vineyards HOA, the request to refund a portion of the $900 is because the financial burden of the association for removal of the trees, repair of the irrigation system, and installation and replacement and understory of the trees and shrubs within Taylor Road landscape buffer. And you guys spent quite a pretty penny on that.
Yes, we did.
Council, any questions for Mike?
I do. Your letter of July 2nd indicates that you anticipated the cost to be $15,000 for new landscaping and to do your repairs. What was the actual amount that the homeowners association paid? Because I assume that $15,000 was just an estimate.
Jake, a question while he's looking at that, give him some time. Do you, if those trees were disrupting the sidewalks, that's on us to be
Those are county sidewalks.
county sidewalks?
County sidewalks, it's the HOA's wall, it's the developer planted those trees. So that the city really has no real equity in it, other than we support that the trees be removed. They are encroaching on the sidewalk and their wall. And
Mike?
I believe FP&L
How's it
helped
going?
with some of that because it encroached on the power.
That's what, there have been power line issues in the past with those trees.
There
I mean,
have,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. All the work is done, they're gone,
They're gone.
so you just have to do.
Excuse me, gentlemen, point of
Yeah.
order. I have the floor.
Yeah, okay.
Right here.
We had a July 19th meeting, and the amounts approved by the board were $76.50 for the removal costs, and then $7,000 for replanting costs for understory trees.
Okay, those are approved. What were your actual costs? And the reason I'm asking is I think it's relevant for the forgiveness, at least in my mind, of what you're asking for a discount, because when you went to the Planning Commission in late August, they noted that had they required you to follow the tree mitigation bank, which is part of city protocol, that would have been another $14,000. And
Yes,
they
it would.
waived that fee, so I think you've already had a pretty substantial reduction, so that's why I'm interested to find out what your actual costs were. Because in my mind, that will influence my decision whether I would vote for or against this waiver or refund.
All I've got is the proposals, and my belief that we acted on those proposals.
Okay. Thank you.
Chase?
No, I was gonna have the same question. I wondered what the actual cost was. You know, I can appreciate the request. Actual cost of staff looking into this doesn't, the cost in there doesn't really take into consideration the time that may have been taken away from other projects that needed the attention. And I think the amount that was already waived, I think, has been pretty more than generous in my opinion.
Drew?
Well, since I'm here, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Because that portion of 421 is county road, does the city landscape buffer requirements apply to that landscape buffer?
The landscape buffer is part of the development. The development is part of the city. The sidewalk is not. The landscape buffer wasn't part of the sidewalk. The landscape buffer was part of the development. And that requirement exists. You're part of the city.
Regardless of whether the road is county road or city road?
That's correct.
Like, I think the request would have been to plant the 40, if I'm not mistaken, probably would have been to plant the 43 trees elsewhere throughout the community in some other common area. You're not going to replant, of course, along the wall. If I'm not mistaken, that would probably have been the request. From what I'm reading, they would have been required to plant those trees elsewhere in the community.
Right, the variance allowed for that not to happen, or for them to pay into the mitigation bank.
I got you.
Drew, you got any other questions?
And so the the requirement to waive the trees and the cost to the tree bank has already been waived, correct?
So the possible total cost
Yeah.
would have been for an additional 43 trees
gotcha.
to be bought,
Okay.
or $14,000 to be, 14 and change put into the mitigation bank.
pay.
Those two things were waived in light of the about $14,000 they had to do to remove the trees.
Yeah.
I do not know how much FP&L help they got in removing those trees and what that offset was on the cost, and I do not believe their replanting has been done yet. I think this just kind of wrapped up, at least the tree cutting did. So, at least
Progress?
the work in progress.
Okay.
But the variance request, we didn't recommend, but the variance request is, the difference is $224, and right now they've already been waived about $15,000 worth of mitigation or
14.
or the cost of 43 trees.
And they'll be spending 14. Okay.
Doesn't stop you from asking. Drew, what else you got?
I don't have anything further.
Anything?
One more, just a legal question, and I would have waived that fee as well, but I'm curious as to why that request didn't come to council. How was Planning Commission able to waive $15,000 worth of fees?
That's part of the authority they have, is to decide the variances. It may have come to you if there was a denial, there's an appeal. So sometimes you've seen variances on appeal, but that would have been, that variance would have been decided by the Planning Commission per their authority.
And I'm okay with that.
Good question. Anything else from up here?
No, sir.
No. Do I have a motion to take action?
I'll move to approve the refund of the
224.
288 or
82.
78.
22482.
224.82. Move to approve that.
May I have a second?
I'll offer a second so we can have a vote.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford,
No.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont,
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 2-2, it fails. I do not have a majority.
Thank you for your time.
Sorry,
Thank
Mike.
you for your time, Mike. Citizen participation, Robert Reinhagen. Solar, huh? I like it.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. Last week I attended the workshop on the rec center redesign, and I want to thank you for letting us do that. But a couple of days later, Thursday, suddenly dawned on me that this would provide the city an excellent opportunity to install solar panels on the roof of that building. You'll be able to install solar on a scale that gets your foot in the door to see how the panels live up to their reputation. You could also get your grant administrator to creatively find some sort of funding that could help you do that and have it associated with phase 2 of the project. I spoke to the rec staff yesterday, and they have agreed that they'll talk to the design people to assure that it's feasible to support the added weight on that building when it gets redesigned. So I would like to also bring your attention to the fact that from the panels you get an immediate stream of income to offset the cost of your utilities. And currently there are paybacks, money that's available to help you defray the cost. And I think you should also consider that it's a real public relations coup to get started on that, and so that the people know how it works, and that other people that talk about Port Orange will know that that's one of your activities. And so I ask you to consider putting solar panels on that roof.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
It's a terrific idea. It's one of the things that we have to worry
Yeah.
about too. As we expand the rec, we also know that our operating costs for that building are going to go up as well.
Sure, Mayor. One of the things that the city would benefit from, kind of keying on what Robert said, is as we move forward with a new building somewhere, because eventually one will have to be built for something, to consider delving into LEED certification. Environmental design and energy efficient buildings is another great it's another great opportunity for the city to lead in LEED certification. It adds cost to a building, but it saves cost as well. I had a few of them in my previous job, and we had a prison and a cafeteria style facility, and they made money in about 12 or 13 years when I left. It's an initial ROI that's pretty painful, but after that they're pretty self-sufficient. So
Technology
something,
is improving.
and technology is getting cheaper and improving. So it's something to consider as we move forward. I think the rec as a renovation, probably to retro it would be very, very expensive, but I think the next foundation up building we build, we should seriously consider adding the money into that.
Okay. Chris Salcott, we would call you the new Teresa Rand. Funny, you don't look one bit like
She
her.
looks much better than me. I'll tell
I'm
you.
not going to argue with you, my friend.
Chris Hillcop, 320 West Rich Avenue, DeLand, Florida. I just wanted to come in front of the City Commission because I'm the new CEO for the Bush of Fighter YMCA, taking over for Teresa Rand. So I thought it'd be a good time to come and say hello, since we have a strong partnership with the city, long going back to the 80s, or actually the 90s, I guess, 91. So I just want to say, hey, how you doing?
We appreciate you coming. Anybody got questions for Chris?
You go to Father Lopez?
Yes, I played with your brother.
I remember.
Yeah, he was
There you
you're
go.
ahead of me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very cool. Welcome.
Yeah, thank
Welcome
you very
back.
much. Yeah, it's
Chase,
been
did you ask
nice.
him that because he's tall?
No, I remember Chris Sealcop, Chris Aceball, Corey
Okay.
Pike, all those
Oh, yeah.
names back in the 80s, Father Lopez basketball, and I was a little guy running around.
We had a pretty good team.
Yeah, those were good days, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
You were
Yeah,
out there
long
getting in
time.
their way, Chase?
I was stealing their balls.
He was,
you know,
yeah, he wasn't small.
He was bouncing the ball before he could even talk, but, you know.
Good to see you.
Brother
No, thank
Ken.
you. Tell your brother I said hello.
You bet.
Yeah, thank
So
you
Mayor,
very much.
Chris and I have sat down. Chris came and introduced himself, and we sat down and talked about some of the things we can do here in the city to move the Y forward, and some of the trials and tribulations we've had, and things that he wants to do. So we're looking forward to having him and trying to forge a new relationship with a new batch of people and see what we can do to make things happen here in Port Orange.
Appreciate that. Appreciate you coming.
No problem.
I'm glad you did, because I think it's important that everybody gets to see, you know, everybody up here should know who the person is, for one thing, but I think everybody in the room and everybody watching should know a little bit more about what their community Y can do for them.
Thank you very much. And anything that the Y can do to create what I call a win-win-win. My previous job, last 7 years, I was CEO in Texas, and I had 4 municipalities that we had contracts with, multiple contracts, and so anything that the Y can do to create a win for the community, a win for the city, and a win for the Y, I think is in the best interest of everybody.
Agreed.
So I'm open to all ideas, anything you may have.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you, Chris.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very
My
much.
brother
Thanks.
texted back. He says hello, and are you finally ready to pass him the ball?
Nope.
Kenny shut out again. Tammy Rowland.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Rowland with Watson Realty Corp., and I am a Port Orange resident. And I am here tonight on behalf of the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Public Affairs Committee. I wanted to just take a moment to say thank you for your continuous involvement with the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce. Your relentless efforts to address the community concerns and all you do to keep Port Orange a great place to live. I know you hear a lot of concerns a lot of times, and this time I just want to say thank you for keeping us a great city, because Port Orange really is a great place to live, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. And that brings us to council comments. Why don't we start with Marilyn?
The only thing I have, I was happy to hear the manager talk about LEED certification. I'm a little bit familiar with it, and I think it's a good thing when we build and do it to conserve energy and using good products. So that's all I have tonight.
Okay. Chase,
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
I'm good tonight.
you good?
Yes, sir.
I have one for you, but Jake, I think I'll let you wait till city manager comments, and you can drink some water between now and then.
That's my problem, the water. Sorry, Lane. It's bottled.
There you go again. You know your wife's watching. Board appointments, interviews, and reports. This is an advisory committee for the TPO.
Bobby Ball.
Mr. Bobby Ball.
Bobby Ball with the CAC for the TPO. We had our monthly meeting, and a lot of talk lately about the long-range transportation plan, so which is going to be coming up real soon. Also, the call for projects. You know, Tim's group will make an application for call for projects coming up here soon for the beginning of next year. So I know he's on top of that. And then we did run out of time in the meeting today, but one of the presentation items was the potential roundabout at Tomoka Farms Road and Pioneer Trail. So it's not exactly in Port Orange, but it's pretty darn close to Port Orange. So if you had any thoughts on that, I'd be welcome to take them and at least carry them forward when we start talking about it. If not, I have one other comment.
Quick question, Bobby. Is a traffic light not an option there? They got the blinking light and they have stop signs. I mean, roundabout seems
I mean,
like
we haven't heard. We
it
haven't
could
heard
be
the
pretty
presentation,
costly.
but yes, I mean, there's-
Traffic lights aren't cheap either, but
Mhm.
you know.
I'm sure it is an option. I
Yeah.
haven't heard enough to know
Okay.
why it's not a good option.
Okay.
I think we'll all be watching that one, because it seems to me there's a need for signalization right now instead of waiting the 4 to 6 years it's going to take to get a roundabout there. In the meantime, it's with some improvements, we're going to have to put up with it for another 4 to 6 years at least until we get a a roundabout and what
Yeah.
may be in a, you know, we may see more roundabouts and we may start getting used to them, but that just seems like an odd place for one. It's a long time to wait. And I know that's outside the city, but that is an area where a lot of people in Port Orange travel through as they
Daily.
leave the city,
Yeah.
myself included. And there are times of day, if you have a chance to give some input, particularly in the afternoon between 4 and 6, where it needs signalized now, if not for traffic, much less safety. So that is a concern of ours, even though that's not directly in the city. It affects a lot of people in Port Orange as well as our neighbors, and that's a concern of ours.
Okay.
Anything else for Bobby? Chase, Marilyn?
One other side comment. I got to play the golf course, Cypress Head, a couple weeks ago in the Spruce Creek tournament.
Good.
And golf course is looking really good compared to where it was 6 months ago, 9 months ago, when you almost lost most of the golf course with some of their issues. I was really tickled. So just kudos to the staff. They've come along pretty nice.
Great to hear.
Something tells me you played better than I did too.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Go away. He remembers. Public hearing. Public hearing portion of the meeting is now open. Item 16, second reading. Ordinance number 2019-32 is a PUD amendment for Colony in the Wood. Come on. Ordinance number 2019-32 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the Colony in the Wood, a planned unit development and amended and restated master development agreement, and the conceptual development plan, CDP, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-32.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Council, questions or comments? Anyone? Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments?
It's second reading, I'm good.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. Brings us to item 17, which is ordinance number 2019-36, Ninth Amendment to the Port Orange Gateway Center Plan Commercial Development Master Development Agreement. Ordinance number 2019-36 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the Ninth Amendment to the amended and restated Master Development Agreement for Port Orange Gateway Center Plan Commercial Development, PCD, and the Conceptual Development Plan, CDP, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2019-36.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. The item is open on the floor for discussion, and you are,
Penelope Cruz, Planning.
tell us all about it.
All right, so tonight's item is regarding the area here in the lighter blue, the Lowe's parcel. It's the only parcel that this particular amendment is pertaining to in the overall Gateway Center PCD. So we've all been to Lowe's and have seen the merchandise out front, and over the past year we've kind of seen during the seasonal sale how some of that kind of accumulated on the side of the property. So during a recent commercial property maintenance inspection, they were cited for outdoor display and things in areas not allowed by their MDA. So our land development code allows for outdoor storage under certain provisions. The existing MDA for Lowe's was more restrictive than what our land development code allows. So this amendment here tonight is going to be addressing some of those two items. So their current existing MDA allowed for outdoor display in the overpass on the front from the main entrance to the lumber yard. The MDA also stated that any outdoor storage in that area was supposed to be behind a 4-foot high screen wall. If you can picture being there at Lowe's, there is a 4-foot screen wall, but it's only over to one side and it's kind of used more as a car corral. So the proposed amendment is addressing basically the existing conditions that that we've all kind of seen and lived with over the years. So the MDA is addressing where that outdoor storage can be displayed consistent with our land development code for the most part. I'm going to get into one policy issue that they're asking for. So you can see here in these peach areas where they're asking to be able to display that lawn furniture, mowers, things like that. The display areas that are currently there under the lumber yard, and where they've got some display in the back, basically where they have the trucks that come and drop off materials in the back. The other part of this amendment is during that seasonal sale this past year, they realized they need a little bit more storage in the garden area. So they're proposing to also, with this amendment, expand the garden center in this area here. Staff has checked the parking requirements of the land development code, and with this expansion, they are still within the minimum parking requirements required. So they are not deviating from any kind of parking requirements with this garden center expansion. They're also identifying in their master development agreement on their concept plan, just so that there's no issues with enforcement, where those seasonal sales can happen for Christmas trees out here in the front in the parking lot, where you can see the kind of yellow hatched area. So those are the things that they're asking for. There are two policy issues that come to play with that. The first is the land development code allows for as many lawn furniture type related or landscaping, materials, plants and things like that to be displayed. There's not a limit to quantity on that. There is a limit in the land development code when it comes to things like grills, mowers. So you're only supposed to have one of those models, but as we know that they have multiple of them there, primarily just for ease of customers for loading and to not have to carry those large items across the store for potential hazards and issues with that transportation. So they are asking for this amendment to continue to have those existing conditions of having more than one model out front of those items. The other thing that they're asking for is with the garden center expansion here, they will be meeting our land development code for architectural requirements with regards to the design. They want to continue the existing facade of the garden center with the masonry columns and the metal fencing in between. However, they are asking in the rear part back here to be able to have black vinyl coated chain link fencing in the back. It's not visible from the public, so they're requesting that that be okayed in that one area. The reason this is a policy issue is because it's considered part of the Dunlawton corridor plan, and so properties that front onto Dunlawton are not allowed to have chain link. So that's why it's a policy issue. But their justification is that it's not visible from the public. It backs to conservation areas from the side and the rear, and it's not part of the public access way. So with that, those are the two policy considerations. Staff is here to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here and can answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Questions of staff first and foremost. Why don't we hear from the applicant? Who's this guy here we've never seen before?
You're about to see the smallest PowerPoint ever.
He's going to show us a PowerPoint presentation in 6-minute increments.
Less.
All right, Glenn. Start the timer, Don.
Start the timer.
I'm kidding.
All right. For the record, my name is Glenn Storch. I represent Lowe's in this case. And as Penny has said, obviously we've been working closely with staff. I'll tell you what was important to Lowe's is that they're a good corporate citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you've always seen they've been a good corporate citizen. All the time they've been here, things look great around there. But this does give us a chance to do two things. It gives us a chance to clarify and clean up some of the fuzziness as far as the rules. So now we all understand what the rules are. In fact, for instance, where we're talking about putting the materials outside, there will be actually marked on the sidewalk exactly where you can use now. So there'll be no chance for intrusion into the walkways, into the ADA areas, et cetera. So that's a good thing as well. The other good thing is that we're taking advantage of this to expand. So the fact that we need this garden area, additional garden area, that's a good thing. And it allows us to expand and continue to provide the service that Lowe's is, I think, famous for in this area. So hopefully we've done everything right. Like I say, as far as my PowerPoint, how do I do this? Scroll. Look at there.
Oh.
The changes are, like I say, fairly minimal. The changes are to deal with the potential code enforcement issues, so we've solved all those issues with staff. We're consistent almost entirely with the currently land development code. We want to work with you. The area for the chain link fence behind Lowe's, that didn't strike us as being something you wanted to put a lot of money into putting giant metal fences and masonry on when you're not going to even see it. So everything that can be seen is beautiful. It's just like with the rest of it. That's how we're doing this. We are not, I want to make sure that it's important because this was something that was brought up during planning board. We are not impacting any existing vegetation, and that buffer that's along Yorktown stays entirely. So I think it'll look much nicer. And let me do my last slide. My last slide is pretty self-explanatory. Staff has recommended approval of this after working with us, and again, we greatly appreciate everything staff has done. The planning board unanimously recommended approval of this, which we appreciate. It resolves all the code enforcement issues and code enforcement board issues, and it clarifies the rules. What could be better? So we are here to answer any questions. We have the engineer for Lowe's here as well to answer any questions. We did hear a couple things that from the planning board as to things that were happening at Lowe's, such as somebody parking a truck in front of it sometimes at night. We're taking care of all those things. So again, we're here to be a good corporate citizen and work with you in any way we can. Any questions?
Glenn, I just have one.
Yeah.
What will the size be, or approximate size of the proposed off-season area out front there in front of the garden center?
It will be about what you're looking at, what you've always looked at before. Don't forget, we've always had that Christmas tree area.
Yeah.
Before. So it'll be about the same size as that.
Okay.
I think it does allow us to do it more than just Christmas. It may, like we may have a spring sale when you have a lot of vegetation coming in and people
Okay.
start planting. So that's typically where you also have an area. But again, it's only on certain times. Those times will be absolutely required as far as time frames. The time frame we have to get those things up and down again are now regulated. So we all understand we're all in the same sheet of music.
Christmas does not start in July like some people think it does.
Apparently not.
Yeah, no trees in July,
That's
please.
right.
Although you walk into there, you can tell Christmas is already in full swing.
I noticed that yesterday.
Questions for Mr. Storch? Marilyn?
None.
Chase?
Nope.
Drew?
Nothing more. No.
I just wanted to say I appreciate it. I do notice that just food for thought and unrelated, I had a need for something between 9 and 10 p.m. and I wasn't sure if you're closing at 9 yet, or whether and I lucked out. I was able to get in at 9:30, but I couldn't tell from the light on the front of the building whether you're still open or not. But it's like, okay, I walked in at 9:30 and was able to take care of what I needed. So it's like,
Roger will mention that.
light it up, man. Light it up, make it beautiful. So just wanted to.
Not so bright as to keep the neighbors away.
No other questions for staff or for Mr.
No.
Storch? Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us, final comments. There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. Public hearing portion of the meeting is closed. That brings us to the regular agenda. First reading of ordinance number 2019-37 is the per diem and travel reimbursement rates as published by the General Services Administration. Ordinance number 2019-37, come on. Hello. There we go. Gotta make that arrow do what I want it to. Okay, let me take a breath here. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, establishing uniform standards for travel and per diem use and expense reimbursements for city officials, employees, and other authorized persons, providing for travel and per diem reimbursement rates, procedures, exceptions, and other limitations, providing for ratification of the travel and per diem related expenditures commencing on October 1st, 2019, consistent with this ordinance, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-37.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. The item is on the floor and open for discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Dr. Niels, Chief Financial Officer. In anticipation of the Workday go-live date in late December, and in accordance with recent budget discussions and approval, this ordinance is brought forward for council approval to comply with Florida statutes. Florida statute section 112.061 promulgates the state of Florida reimbursement rates for per diem and travel. Council, through ordinance, may authorize the use of alternative reimbursement rates in accordance with state statutes. Effective October 1st, 2019, the city will use the per diem and travel reimbursement rates as published by the General Services Administration. These rates cover travel for all states and are updated periodically to correctly reflect changes in local area costs. These rates have been included in the budget for the fiscal year 2020 and are an integral component with the new Workday financial system and are included in the updated travel policy 1-17 effective October 1st, 2019. It is staff recommendation that the council approve this ordinance. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Start at this end. Drew, questions?
This will just be a city policy. Any of the boards or where they have travel and education, it doesn't affect them. This is for city-related travel,
City-related,
not
that
for
is
any of
correct,
the boards. Okay.
That's correct.
What, so just let me see clarification. What boards are we talking about?
The pension boards and some of these
the-
groups that go,
Okay,
they have
so
educational opportunities and things.
If somebody else is paying,
Yeah.
it's their set of rules.
okay.
If the city's
That-
paying,
I
then,
gotcha.
then you'll fly under our umbrella.
Understood.
Chase?
No questions.
Marilyn?
Yeah, I did have some questions. The first page of the ordinance, the second paragraph, whereas, and there's only one sentence, it says, recommends using the standard substantially similar to the General Services Administration rates recognized for federal employees. And yet, the brief you just indicated and also the agenda item says you are going to use their rates. So when I saw the language that says utilizing standards substantially similar, that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as you're going to be using the GSA rates. So that may be a question for the city attorney as to why the difference in that rate, and then I have additional questions about the travel policy. But it seems to me there's a lack of continuity between we're going to use GSA, which is what we put in the budget, and a resolution that says using standards substantially similar. Doesn't mean you're using GSA.
Is there any deviation from the GSA rates in the draft policy?
No, and I would venture an opinion that there are different rules for some federal agencies. If you look at the IRS and some of the other federal agencies, they tweak theirs a little bit, but they are all based on the GSA standard rate table.
Right, but if the city is, this is a city ordinance.
Yes, so
and
we're-
the city ordinance, we've all discussed using GSI rates,
Yes, ma'am.
but your actual ordinance doesn't say you're going to use them. It says you're going to use standards substantially similar. To me, that legally is not the same thing. Am I
So-
splitting hairs or?
Well, the exhibit controls, so the ordinance, the whereas clauses certainly become part of the ordinance, but the exhibit is what you're adopting. So Exhibit A, which is the policy as outlined, is what is specifically being adopted. I don't know of any deviations from the GSA rates that have been adopted, so I think Exhibit A is going to control here, and we can potentially tweak that language to the extent that there is not a substantial, it's not substantial as it is exactly the GSA rates. But at the end of the day, Exhibit A is going to control.
Well, I understand that, but I would be much more comfortable if the ordinance says what the standard is.
Council members, Margaret Roberts, City Attorney. I was the drafter on that ordinance. I have no problem striking that out. Those are perhaps legal words of art, and it is, as Director Niels indicated, the procedures may deviate slightly, so that's why I added that word in, but it can be stricken from that whereas clause.
What would you recommend putting in there?
Just strike the word substantially.
Utilizing the general.
Standards of, utilizing the standards of the General Services
that's
Administration,
fine.
or, excuse me,
Strike
utilizing the,
GSA, General Service Administration rates recognized.
Okay, so can you read the
Yes, ma'am.
modified?
Yes, ma'am. As modified, it would say, whereas the city manager and city staff have studied and reviewed the current city policy and have determined that amendments are required to provide a reasonable rate of reimbursement to the city's officials, employees, and other authorized persons, and recommends utilizing the General Services Administration rates recognized for federal employees. So
Okay.
strike standards substantially similar.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Then my question under the policy,
Now, just, oops, I'm sorry, I just want to mention that that change in language will come with a motion that you're going to have to make at the end of your questioning.
I will.
Just want to make sure you're prepared for that.
Okay. Then, there's two different questions. One, let me read where I wrote this. What I didn't see in the travel policy was, let's suppose there's a meeting in Orlando. It's more than, the other side of Orlando, Kissimmee. And it's more than 100 miles away, so the city's going to provide lodging. And then per diem, which would be for meals and incidentals. I didn't see anything in the policy that talked about if an employee decided to, they have a relative that lives in Kissimmee and stay there. Obviously, they still could get the per diem, but they don't need the lodging, and they may not need the full per diem if they're eating dinner with, the sister-in-law. So what controls are there? So
Receipts.
that,
Receipts.
but if you don't know whether the person,
We won't approve it. We authorize
Okay.
lodging ahead of time.
okay.
If I'm going to Nashville, my room's already paid for, tax-free by the city before I go.
Okay.
If you go to Orlando, we have a bunch of people in Orlando now. Their rooms were paid for before they went. If you're staying at, and we've done this before, we've had people stay at, if you're staying at your relative's house, you're not going to get lodging money.
Okay.
So, receipts for food, for per diem, are brought back, for many reasons. One of which is if, I'm not gonna stop anybody from going to Orlando and meeting up with their cousin and having, a lobster fest out there, but I'm not gonna pay them for that. And I'm not gonna pay them for the alcohol they drink if they drink alcohol. So they'll bring the receipts back, we'll give them, the per diem they deserve and no more.
Okay, thank you. And then there's a clause about all-inclusive per diem. That is an option instead of one based upon individual receipts. Has that ever been exercised, and how many times has it been used in the last year?
I don't believe it has it?
That's a new provision in the GSA rates. The
Right.
traveler, if they stay overnight, has the option to use the full per diem, which includes the incidental, or they can take the individual per diem for the meals. But they can't take both.
Okay,
One or the other.
I understand that, but if we put that in our policy, do you have any basis or estimate what the difference in cost is going to be? I mean, if you make a policy, shouldn't you have some sort of expectation of what, if you will, the standard rate of everything that you have to itemize versus the all-inclusive, what that means?
But the all-inclusive is just breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then $5 for incidentals. That's it.
Okay.
If they have other reimbursable items, that's up to the director to approve, and those would be submitted on a travel receipt or a travel voucher. and specific receipts would be necessary, and that's up to the director to approve under our current policy.
The big ticket item, Councilmember Ford, would be parking. Sometimes we go to events and parking is $10. Sometimes we go to events and they don't
25
they
or
don't
30.
give you a discount, and it's 30 or 35. I've been late, and valeted. You can ask my wife. We don't charge. I do not charge, nor will anybody else charge the city for that valet parking. So if you screw up and you're late and you use valet, you're going to suck that up. So we're at the department head level. They bring that, they squash that at the department head level quite well, managing receipts. We don't do a little travel, but we don't do a lot to the point where I don't have time to look at this, just let it go. They do a good job at looking. We know who's going, we know when they're going, we know how much it's going to cost. Mayor Burnett and I know how much the Hyatt breakfast costs because we've both written that check before. So it's hard to game the system. Now the GSA rates do provide, as we talked about during the budget hearings, they do provide a little bit of added benefit to the person traveling, because we found that a lot of people were bringing coolers and eating Uncrustables because they couldn't afford the food at the hotel that they were stuck at. We have 4 people now that are at the Hilton. It takes about 45 minutes to get your car out and go down to the 7-Eleven, and it's probably $15, $17 for a veggie wrap. So that's kind of what we're trying to prevent, is people paying a lot of money out of pocket when we put them in a place where it's not easy to get out to get a meal.
Well, I would just recommend that if you've got those 2 different rates, the all-inclusive and the itemized, that you look at that and monitor that and see is there a difference, and does it make sense to use one or the other. And then my final question would be, Section 8 talks about entertainment in Port Orange venues, and it talks about concerts, theater, alcoholic beverages discouraged, but they may be approved. And I understand where they're going, and this may well be something that was a pickup from the GSA, but I'd be interested in knowing how many times in the past year has the city had entertainment costs, or is this a new provision?
It was a provision in the old travel policy, if I recall. I think alcohol was, I want to say it might have been excluded, and I added it. This provision is not often used. I don't foresee it being used for anybody other than me or council. Remember, council falls under this policy too. What I didn't want to do, and it's come up Mayor, once or twice where can we use a P card for that? No, we can't. If you're courting a developer for something, if you want to bring a few people to dinner and get a bottle of wine, we want council I foresee it being something that we kind of agree to ahead of time, that we want these people, let's take them to dinner, let's try to get them to come to the city for something. And so I thought about that from a council perspective. Possibly me. I would not do that without telling council that I'm going to do it. And Tim Berman occasionally has an opportunity to buy pizza or buy lunch for somebody that we're trying to get to at least visit Port Orange when he goes to conferences, and I want to allow that. But again, every time a department head asks to do something like that, except for Parks and Rec, they have special things that they do. But nobody in this city buys a pizza, buys a sandwich, or buys anything for anybody without letting me know that they're going to do it. Parks and Rec does it all the time because they have the youth, and that's part of the youth entertainment, and that's part of something that they've already planned for. But as far as us, I don't go out as a habit and buy Glenn Storch, for instance. I've never bought him lunch, and he's never bought me lunch. And that wasn't the intent. The intent was special occasions.
Well, I guess this clause I find fraught with, it's a slippery slope, because I think entertainment, we're not talking about a meal. I think when we're talking about theater and other things and wining and dining, you have to look at their tax dollars. And second of all, if you're there on city business, you're either in a city vehicle or your own, and claiming it under the travel policy, if you drink alcohol, even a glass of wine, you may be exposing the city to some liability. And so I think that probably is not a very smart idea. And I think if we're talking about, do we need to entertain for economic development, that's a policy issue that I think council should be involved in. It's not simply a conference or travel expenditure. That's what I would propose.
Well, I concur that it's a slippery slope if it's not managed properly. We do manage this properly. We have in the past, and I have seen no untoward use of a P card or this policy in the past. Tim, have we purchased a meal before? I recall doing that once, or doing something for somebody once in my 4 years here. And Tim asked, I think I can manage it pretty well.
But there may be something that belongs in some other line item as opposed to travel. That's what I'm suggesting. And remember, you never set policy for the good man who's the manager now. You have to set policy for what will be vibrant and appropriate whoever is sitting in that seat. Because ultimately it's the person that's doing the deed, if you will, that needs to be guided by the policy. That concludes my questions.
Thank you. Any other questions? Would anyone from the public care to speak to this item? There being none, back to us. Are there any modifications or any more? If there are no other modifications to the, Marilyn, I think you did want to make a motion to
I
change
would.
some of the language. That's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, there's still a motion on the floor though, so you just need to probably withdraw or address that first, and then she can remake the motion.
I'll withdraw my motion.
And I believe I was the seconder, so I
Okay.
approve withdrawal. So would you like me to make the
I very much would.
Okay. I move that we pass ordinance number 2019 as printed, with the change that in paragraph 2, the second whereas, we strike the words utilizing the standards substantially similar to, such that it reads, whereas the city manager and city staff have studied and reviewed the current city policy and have determined that amendments are required to provide a reasonable rate of reimbursement to the city's officials, employees, and other authorized persons, and recommends the General Services Administration rates recognized to federal employees.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. Perfect.
Second.
We have a motion, second on the floor. Any other comments on the change? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont,
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. You look good in that blue shirt.
Got my cover too.
There you go. Well, that's okay. We're going to get to a part of the meeting where they're all going to have to participate. They don't know that yet, but well, maybe they do now.
Oops.
City attorney vacancy, item 19. Margaret thinks that after 19 years that she has to leave us for another job. I don't understand for the life of me why, but that does leave us with the question of who do we turn to and what do we do? And with that, is Jamie here?
No, sir.
The way I see it, and you guys can correct me or add to it, or I see this basically as three options. We can go out and advertise the opening right now. We could talk about somebody on staff who may be able to fill that opening on an interim basis. Or we could talk about somebody on staff who might be able to fill the job on a permanent basis and give them the authority to fill the open positions, because there are a couple of key positions that would be open, and without filling them, I don't want to set them up for him or her. Well, it looks like a him over there, up for failure. But council, what is your pleasure, and where do you want to take this discussion? Why don't you start with Drew?
I believe it was option C or option 3. Look within current staff. And
He's looking
yeah,
dressed
yeah,
the part,
he's very
that's for
dapper.
sure.
Phil, have him take over and have him and Shannon hire who they need to complement their team.
Mhm.
Want to keep things moving forward in a positive direction, and not take a step backwards or slow down or impede any of the progress and the pace that legal has to work through.
And that's your thought, your opinion?
Yes, sir.
Chase, what do you think?
Yeah, it's not a decision I take lightly. You know, my responsibility to the citizens of Port Orange has put us in the best possible position to be successful and, most important, in compliant with the law. You know, that's what we took our oath to do, is uphold the Constitution. That said, putting us in that best position, I think we already have the right man for the job here. There's obviously multiple ways to go about doing it, but Mayor, you've said it time and time again that some of our greatest export are children that come through here, and we have a homegrown guy here that's been here for 9 years. I'm speaking, of course, of Matt Jones. That's been here 9 years, and frankly, that's been the majority of my interaction has been with him. I think he's very well qualified. If he's not going to be here, he's going to go somewhere else, and he's going to be very well received. I just assume keep him home. He has everything at stake. His family's here, and he's capable. I think he's the best fit for the city of Port Orange. I'm prepared to make a motion tonight to that effect, respectfully, of course, after everyone has their comments. But at the end of the day, I'm not interested in putting him in a horse race either. My personal opinion is that would be an insult, when in fact I have, in my mind, the right man for the job. I don't need a few extra months to learn anything more about him. I think he's got 9 years of a solid record to tell us all we need to know. So that's where I'm at, but I respect anyone that wants to make a different route.
Okay. Marilyn, your thoughts, questions, desires?
Well, in my short tenure, I have been impressed with Mr. Jones, and we've chatted, and I do think he has been mentored quite a bit by Margaret. I think as much as I think he's qualified, I think there's a benefit to giving him an interim position. I think there are some options in terms of the vacancies, because I like the idea that we get a test run, and he does too. There's a difference between being number 2 and all of a sudden being number 1, and he might decide he doesn't exactly like the pressure as much as he thought he did. It doesn't foreclose the door that either party may decide that they need to do a search. I appreciate Councilman Tremont's remarks. The other way to look at it is even if we did a search, and I think he's a very strong contender, it would be nice for the local guy to compete and to know that he was selected and he's as good as everybody else out there, that he went through a strong interview process and he's still the one that we came back to because we do think, you know, he can run with the best of them out there. I'm not advocating necessarily for that. I've been impressed and I think it's good, but I think I'd be leaning more to give him the interim position. I would make it no more than 6 months, max, if we were to do that.
You can actually make an intern position too short. Because there are transitional positions in that office that need to be taken care of, and we are in the process of going through a number of things with ERP in the city that's going to affect that office as well. And that, you know, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, to me, you could actually make a short-term interim decision and have it be too short to be fair in judgment, in my opinion. So if that's the route council wants to take, and if Mr. Jones accepts, then we need to settle on an appropriate period of time, just like an interim position could be too long. And I agree with you, it needs to be time bound. We can't leave that out there indefinitely. I'm sorry, I started, you were done?
I was
Okay.
done, yeah.
Okay, because my thoughts also were, I feel like I'm comfortable, and I've gotten to know Matt, and I have taken some time examining it, because Margaret interviewed for another position a year prior, and at that point in time, I'm like, okay, I understand the reasons why she's leaving, but at that point in time, I realized I have to take a look and see what we've got, and I've spent a lot of time in meetings with Matt and the like and discussing things, and I know that we've talked about development issues. We've talked about his vision for what that department would look like, and I think it's important that whoever runs that department has their own vision, because they're the one that has to make that work. Personally, I'm not in favor of doing a search, because I think that can actually have a stranglehold on that department. At the same time, we'd take an awful lot of, it would take some time to do that. We'd have to hire a search firm, and we'd be spending money on that, on something where I don't see us spending money on something where we already have an answer. Quite frankly, we need to spend time and energy on recruiting and filling key positions in there and getting ready as ERP moves forward. So the other thing is I don't feel as strongly, and I thought about it at first too, maybe you make him an interim for 6 months or an interim for a year and offer him that or not. Quite frankly, I don't feel like I need to do that. If council does, so be it, because the reason is that the city attorney's office, the city attorney is a charter officer of the city, is accountable directly to us, is one of the 2 charter officers, and that person, whoever it would be, serves at our pleasure, whether they're an interim or not. I do like the idea of maybe, you know, he has the option of saying after 6 months, well, this wasn't what I thought it was, and I'm happy doing what I was doing before. But I really don't think that would be the case, because I don't think Matt does anything halfway and commits to something all the same. But Matt, I have some questions for you, and I think first and foremost is publicly I need to ask you, are you interested in the permanent position?
Yes.
He's got a suit on, of course he's
You dressed up tonight, huh?
Which is why I never not wear one.
Says the other chartered officer of the city. Matt, I have to ask you this as well. Would you be satisfied if council were to offer it to you on an interim basis? Would that be something you'd want to discuss?
If that's what council needs, I'd be open to that discussion.
Okay. Because I don't want council to float a motion not knowing where you stand on that. Personally, like I said, I have a comfort level. I'm not worried about that. I also know that you're willing to work nights, weekends, 168 hours a week, whatever it takes to get the job done, and have no personal life anymore, because that's what it takes sometimes, right? Is that a yes?
It was at 168.
There's only 168 in a week. I can't ask for more than what is.
We'll allow you 8 hours of sleep, 160 hours.
As
8
needed.
hours of
Yeah.
sleep. Sleeper for the week.
Yeah.
But keep your phone on.
Yeah.
Basically, what I'm saying is you're ready to make a full commitment, knowing that it's going to take something extra than what you've been doing.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I think we
And
have,
as long as I'm asking you questions, you have an opportunity to sell us on you
Well,
right now.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the kind words. You know, I've had a lot of fun doing what I do here. I've had probably the best mentor I could have asked for in Margaret, and showing me the ropes from my first start here, day one, almost 9 years ago till now. Yeah, this is what I love. I don't think I planned on being a city attorney, but I kind of fell in love with it in an internship in year 3 of law school, and this is kind of all I can see myself doing at this point. So I appreciate the opportunity if it's there, and I'll do my best and I'll let you know.
Okay. Now, we're also short a councilman tonight, and this being the decision that it is, if the 4 of us want to take action tonight, then so be it. But I think it's also important that maybe that we commit to a course of action tonight. Matt, you and I would have to sit down and talk about a contract and come back to council with that contract, whatever that is, and at that point, all 5 of us would have to make a final decision. Council, what do you think? What's your pleasure?
who wants to
Yeah,
start?
I made my position pretty clear. I'm prepared to float a motion today to offer them, but I'm respectful. I want to give respect to the rest of the council. I want to, they need that time. Then, I'd like it to be, a situation where everyone feels comfortable about it. I regret that Councilman Stiltner's not here.
Well, then
It's
do me
important,
this. If you're going to float a motion, if you could make that motion subject to council's approval, that way all 5 of us have another bite at the apple.
I think that'd be
Or
appropriate.
whatever motion that is floated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable and prepared to, have Matt as the city attorney when the opening, December 2nd.
Effective December 2nd, 2019.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I don't think we have to look anywhere else.
I'll entertain a motion from the floor or from the dais.
You mentioned a provision in that.
Make your motion, I'll give it to you again.
Motion to extend an offer for Matt Jones to be Port Orange City Attorney.
Subject to council's ability to review and approve the contract.
Subject to council's ability to review and approve the contract.
That would be negotiated between the mayor and the prospective candidate.
Negotiated between the mayor and prospective candidate.
Is that
That is a motion.
that is a motion? Does that carry weight and water with everybody? Before I take a second, is there anything else that anybody feels like?
Works
Okay,
for me.
I'll-
We'd have to approve the contract anyway, so yeah, that's
Do I have a
good.
second?
I will gladly second that.
Okay. Council comments?
But
Well,
I don't want to say welcome aboard because you're already
no, because
here.
we haven't taken a
But-
vote yet,
and we
I
haven't,
haven't
yeah.
even, and I haven't even gotten it. Hold
correct,
on,
correct.
Hold on. Now that we've gone through all of this rigmarole and making Matt
Yeah.
sweat in that suit over there, would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us, final comments. And we have a motion on the floor to approve the hiring of Matt as the permanent city attorney, subject to a successful negotiation of contract, which will take place between the mayor and the candidate, which will come back to council for final approval. Did I
Before you-
summarize it good enough?
Before we call the vote, one question.
Okay.
Does, at the time we approve the contract, or should we include it in this motion to give him the authority to hire his remaining staff?
Why don't we handle that as a separate
Okay,
motion?
okay, very good.
We can continue the conversation here in a second. Call the roll?
Councilmember Ford?
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Okay, 4-0. It's a yes. Matt, I would like to congratulate you and also wish you my condolences at the same time, because this might be one of these, be careful what you ask for. Drew, you had something else you wanted to float.
Also, since he will be taking over, could we, move to grant him the authority to fill the remaining positions on his team?
Mayor,
It's premature.
if I could add.
Okay.
So from and I said Jamie wasn't here, but Heather Carazales is in the corner here hiding, if we have any HR issues. But there's two positions that are out there right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of them, I think you would probably be comfortable with right now. It's the paralegal, right? It's the attorney that's contingent upon Matt accepting and council voting on the next. So and that could happen pretty quick. But I get the vibe here that you all are going to vote on this pretty quick. So so we can get, from an HR perspective, we can get our ducks in a row and get this all but posted and subject to you guys acting in the next meeting or a special meeting. Whenever you all want, you have a workshop on the 22nd that you can flex to if you're really that quick, and then Matt can move forward or say no to the contract, one or the other. But
Okay, before
you'll
we
get
get into
closure.
further conversation about that, Drew, did you actually put that motion on the floor, or were you discussing?
That's what I
what-
would, yeah.
Okay, you're discussing
Yes,
putting that
to
motion on the floor.
do that.
Because I agree, because I didn't want to have more discussion unless we had a motion, a second, or none.
Okay.
None at all. I agree that I think Matt, even though he technically is not under contract and is not the city attorney, even
Yeah.
though he's kind of acting in that role right now, should have that authority, even though that to choose who is going to be on his staff, even though technically Margaret is still our city attorney.
I got you.
That's one issue. The other is, until we actually have him under contract,
I got you.
he needs to replace himself, but until he's actually under contract, that position does not exist. So what Jake's talking about is
understand.
doing the groundwork and making sure that we're ready to advertise and do the things that we need to do once that happens, so that we can
Okay.
act quickly. Is that what we're talking about, Jake?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even think Heather's. I don't even think we're close from an HR perspective. The attorney's office might be ready to go, but there's things we need to do
Okay. So we can get that
to hire. So
rolling and then
yeah,
go from there.
we'll start doing the and there's a lot of things. If you all delay, we can do a contingent. There's so many things we can do, but let us get our stuff together. You guys get your stuff
Sounds
together,
perfect.
and we'll try to not beat you to the conclusion.
Is there any harm in giving him the authority right now to choose who the next legal assistant?
Margaret and Matt can arrange that right now. They can do that without us.
Yeah,
they can do that.
I just
Yeah,
want,
so
I have no problem trusting Margaret to make sure that, even though that she's officially the one that has to sign off on it, to make sure that Matt has full say-so over that.
Yeah, the paralegal and secretary, or I'm sorry, administrative assistant position are both out for advertising. That's
Yeah, they're already
something that
out.
Margaret's
Okay.
been,
Perfect.
So we
allow
have
me
what
to
we
kinda-
need. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that between the two of you, you get what you need, and that you're set up for success. That's the key.
That's good now. Yep.
Okay. Good.
So Drew, you don't need to make a motion.
Perfect.
You brought up, but it was good conversation nonetheless. Anything else on this item? Good, because that brings us to city attorney comments.
None this evening. Thank you.
You don't have anything to say after all that?
That was enough. Yeah.
Not even thank you?
Well, yeah, no, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Just saying. City manager comments. Jake, I asked you if you would
Yes, sir.
comment on,
Recycling.
thank you. That word was
Yes, sir. I have a
hanging in
couple
the end-
items.
hanging
So,
in the end of my tongue.
We met with a representative from Strategic Materials. They are a recycling company in Sarasota. They recycle glass. So when we said the city isn't recycling glass and we don't recycle glass anymore, the company we deal with doesn't find it cost effective to recycle glass. The gentleman we talked to with Strategic Materials would like to develop a relationship with Gel and to see if we can get our glass to Gel as we had in the past and have Strategic Materials take it for recycling or have it delivered for recycling. There's some legwork we need to do to make that happen. When I say we, it really doesn't need to be we, but I want to push it and get it back on the list. We'd like to work a relationship with Gel, Strategic Materials, see how much that will cost, and I'm going to need that, bring that cost back to you. When we recycle glass at Strategic Materials, we will get money for it as long as it's clean. If it's dirty glass, we're not going to get as much money for it because it's dirty glass, because then they have to clean it. So we're going to have to see how much we're going to get for the clean glass, how much it costs to get it to Gel, how much Gel is going to charge us to store it there, how much it's going to cost to transport it to Sarasota, and then find out whether our citizens and council are willing to pay a premium, if there is a premium, to conduct that whole operation. Some people would say that the environment's worth any cost. Some people would say don't raise my rates for garbage again. So we're going to have to get that information for you and have a workshop and talk through that. We'll have Strategic Materials here. I have another guy up in Erie, Erie, Pennsylvania, that's cold right now, and he wants to start a recycling down here somewhere, but he hasn't packed up his stuff and moved down yet, so that would be something in the long term. But right now, we don't have the cost of whether it's cost effective to do and whether the citizens are willing to pay that price, or we're ready to stroke the check and just pay it out of hide. Either way, the citizens pay, right, because they pay taxes. So that's where they are, and we'll keep on talking with these guys and try to keep that relationship building going with Gel and get them to do something. We do have an option of glass drop off. And the problem with that is historically, statistically, curbside pickup gets 95% of your glass. Drop-off pickup gets about 5 to 7%, and that won't be cost effective. So you have to make arrangements with multiple drop-off areas, groceries, places people go. Grocery stores, they don't go to Oak Street to the Public Works Department to drop off glass. Yeah. They mean well, but they don't. So that would be the other option. And I'm not saying it's not cost effective, but I have a feeling when we do the research, it just won't cut it. And oh, by the way, when you put recycling bins out in the public, they tend to end up being dirty glass because people put their Wawa cup in there and other things that you would wish weren't in there. So the best way to do it is a curb pickup. So we'll continue to work on that. We spent a lot of money last year picking up glass. It's not that we don't want to do it. It's just that we were spending a lot of money and it was going to the same place that it's going now by putting it in the garbage can
Yeah,
for about
that
half
make-
the price, right? I think it's $80 a ton when we were recycling it and it was going to the landfill versus $34 a ton when it's going directly to the landfill. So it's going to the same place and we're saving money in the short term, and we'll continue to try to find a suitable option. So that's it for recycling. Before I go to my next topic, if anybody's got any questions.
One question on the dirty glass. That doesn't, that's the contaminants and other trash that they put in there. It's not soaking a label off or just rinsing the glass out.
No, it's your mayonnaise jar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Your marmalade.
Okay, so it just have to be rinsed.
My
You don't have-
marmalade.
They don't require you to remove labels or anything? Just
No.
rinse it, clean glass?
Yep.
Okay.
Is that it?
Any other
Yeah, oh,
questions
yeah.
on this topic?
Yeah, questions on this topic?
We are going to workshop it.
Okay.
Yes,
I'll provide, yes, yes.
The point of this is to give us an update.
You bet.
When we get to the point, we will be workshopping.
Yeah, so I have to match make in order to get this, so I gotta do some relationship building before I do the financial on it, so I'll work on that. The second thing is, are we good?
No, I see what else you got for us.
Recycling? We're gonna move forward with the ACE 2000 ADA compliant voice to subtitle. If you recall, we tried that. It kind of was not the perfect solution, but I think a solution that we can capitalize on and make better is better than no action at all. So we're going to buy that machine and allow it to learn all of our the way we speak. It doesn't recognize y'all fixing yet, but it could if we trained it. It doesn't know what done Lawton means. For all you people that use Waze and Siri, sometimes it says something, you're like, that's not how to say that. Well, you got to correct it, or you don't. You just listen to it every time. So the ACE 2000 is the same way. And I think within a 6 to 8 month period, it'll be pretty accurate. Is it going to guarantee that we're not going to get looked at in the future? No. But you know what it is going to do? It's going to provide our deaf folks that live in the city with an option, and I like that. So I think it's worth it. The other thing, next week, everybody on the staff is going to be out of town except for Jamie, I think. Alan Rosen is out, I am out, and Jamie Miller will be sitting in this seat for the workshop.
All right.
So,
Oh, sorry.
you know, if you need to get something done, Jamie's your yes lady.
could change
Probably
courses.
not, actually. She's a tough one. You're going to be talking about a few items. PFM is going to come and talk about increasing our ability to buy some lower rated bonds. If you recall, we did that 2 years ago. Well, we're in the same situation again, and they're going to talk to us about going to A-rated bonds to increase our capability to earn a little bit. Chief Fuston, I believe, is going to come and talk to you all about his interaction with Southeast Volusia, with other fire departments and what they're doing. At the roundtable meeting, we talked about that a couple months ago, and he's prepared a brief to give you. And there's a few items that escape me right now, but Jamie's been briefed on all those, and she will be representing the city manager's office on Tuesday. I will be leaving for Nashville for the ICMA conference on Friday, and I think I'm coming back the following Wednesday or Thursday. So that's all I have, sir.
City Council Committee reports. Art House.
We had our last meeting August 27th. Our board retreat is October 28th. Art House had very successful sidewalk art time during family days, and the city sponsored a painting, and we got a letter. They'd like to thank the city of Port Orange for making the 20th annual Street Painting Festival possible. And for those who don't know, street painting actually originated in Italy, and it was known as the Madonna's work. And so actually in Europe, it's very well known, and we had an artist from France who was here and participated. Art House raised over $8,000, which is absolutely unbelievable. And the money used will go to 2 outreach programs, one at Easter Seals for autistic children, ages 3 to 5, and one at Hope Family Homeless Shelter. And Art House has really, in addition to all of the things that it does for able-bodied children, they've really started some new initiatives for children that may not be served as much, so underserved children. And I sponsored one. It was Best
Yeah.
of Show, the giraffes. So
Right in front of the city manager's office.
yeah, it was great.
Beautiful.
And they participated last week, a number of board members at the rec workshop when they talked about things. For those that don't know, as the gymnasium undergoes a renovation and expansion to meet the needs of recreation of children, adults, and teens and everything in between in the city, they are talking about having a section where Art House will be in one end of it, so that will alleviate or reduce the rent at the building down on Ridgewood Avenue. And it may make it more accessible and provide a terrific opportunity to have more exposure. And they're talking about partnering with some other organizations. So it's a great initiative. Parks and Rec is always thinking about ways to enrich and improve services to the community. That's it.
Very cool. And to note, that Sidewalk Street Festival, all the wonderful art, if you walk City Center and walk by this building, City Hall, it's still out there, and you'll be able to enjoy it as you walk through there for the next few months. It'll be there for quite a while. Next, Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce. As I asked Debbie Connors to come up here, please. I will mention council this Thursday is the business after hours. This Thursday from 5 to 7 at Volusia Memorial Dignity up on Clyde Morris. So if anybody would like to attend. Debbie, tell us about this little group you have over here.
This little group? Well, I'd like to bring up Reggie Hunter, who is our liaison with the leadership class. Reggie is working with us this year. She attends every leadership class. We have 20 people in the class, and these brave souls are the ones that actually came tonight.
Yes, they did.
So the class is going well. They're almost halfway through it. And so we're very pleased to have them here. And can they come up and introduce themselves?
That's the next step.
All right. Come on, y'all.
Leave your cell phones.
Kristen Johansson is on the steering committee, and you might recognize her. She's kind of really family around here.
I think it was her phone there, right?
Yeah, it was.
I was wondering if Jake was the one that made it ring.
All right, so yeah, come on up and
Had I thought about it.
Who you are and who you're with.
I am Sarah Terapan. I work for Jody Radcliffe CPA firm here on Dunlawton. I'm a staff accountant there.
You probably have the most beautiful office building in the city.
Oh, it is really nice. Thank
Yes,
you.
I'm Tracy Rothstein. I work for Jones Homes USA as a new home sales consultant at the Westport community.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Aaron Robbins with Advent Health, the imaging director down in New Smyrna Beach.
Very good.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Nicole Schultz. I am a chiropractor and I adjust humans and animals.
Nice. Very cool.
I am Heath Barrow with the YMCA. I work with a grant-funded teen group mentoring program.
Very good. We know with this guy.
Scott Niels, City of Port Orange, CFO, and I love it here. Thank you, guys.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Morris. I'm with ETT Distributors. That's Pool and Patio. I live here in Port Orange. I love it. I just moved here in June from Mormon Beach.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Smart move.
Nicely done.
Good evening, everyone. I am Carl Duperval. I'm the Director of Business Development with Advent Health, Daytona Beach and New Smyrna Beach.
Excellent. Very good.
How you doing? I'm Dan Morris with Honest Wanatacare in South Daytona, and I'm also the region developer for all of Volusia County.
Very good.
I'm Angela Harrison. I'm the office manager at Blake Thomas State Farm.
All right. Very nice.
Hi there, I'm Ricardo Gill. I'm an entry-level engineer with local consulting firm Mead and Hunt, and we're happy to do work for you guys all the time. So actually, I think one of our something was on the agenda between
Yeah,
us
one of
today. But yeah, I also recently moved to Port Orange. Very happy here. Thank you.
Nice. Good.
Well, you guys are going to see a trend. My name is George Lehan. I'm the laboratory director at Advent Health Daytona Beach. So we're glad to be here, and we're learning a lot from you guys. So thanks.
Very good.
Good evening. Michael Agri with North Atlantic Consultants. I'm a Port Orange resident, and I own North Atlantic Consultants. We help businesses upgrade their phone and internet. And I voted for all of you except for Jake.
That's usually how it happens.
It's been a great class this year. They went through the economic development session last week, and so Jake did a presentation on city management, and along with Bill Hall, from Mayor of South Daytona, and then Tim Berman took them on some projects with community development. So they've got education and project management. Several health and human services have good sessions coming up. So
Tomorrow we go to jail.
and tomorrow they're going to jail.
Okay.
Reggie, you seem awful comfortable with that statement.
Well, you know, just as long as nobody recognizes me, I'll be all right.
This
But-
time you're
but
going
you're
in the
driving
front.
tomorrow.
Yeah, this
You're
time
not
she's
riding
going in
in
the
the
front
back.
door. I tell you what, it's great to see both new faces and familiar faces, and I look forward to seeing most or all of you at the banquet at the end of the year. That's always a great way to celebrate, and I'm glad that you all see the benefit of this chamber. This chamber has benefited this community for an awful long time, and this is just one of many things that they do. And one of the many, you turn out graduates from leadership that make a difference in our community every year. This is yet another fine group. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great job.
Thank you all.
And also, I think a couple of you went to the county managers program that we had last week for breakfast, and we heard an excellent presentation from Deb Denny's on the commercial space industry and the potential here for economic development in Volusia County. So that was really a great presentation, and on the importance of the census by Councilman Billy Willer. So that was terrific, and thank y'all for coming.
Thanks, Debbie. Thank you. And that's your Port Orange South Daytona Chamber report for this evening. A little bit longer than normal, but the roundtable of elected officials met yesterday. There were a couple of emphasis. One was on Billy Willer spoke to us about Census 2020, and Jake and I have already had some conversations as the big push starts in March about maybe utilizing our booth at Family Days and the like, and there'll be some other marketing efforts that the staff is working on that they'll be introducing to us in the coming months. The other, Jake already reported on yesterday, talked about the functional consolidation of fire and emergency services in the county, and Chief Fuston's going to be recapping that for us at a future workshop. So we'll leave that for him to discuss. I would also like to leave out for the rest of you, if there are any issues that come up that you'd like me to take back to the roundtable, whether it be now or in the future, feel free. I don't want to say they're searching for things to talk about, but they really are. And I think that's a sign of a few things. One is that for the first time in a long time, there is real cohesion in that group. And usually you'll see subgroups of cohesion in that group. 4 or 5 over here, 6 or 7 over here. And certainly we're one of those because we have great relationships with our neighboring cities. And I'm hoping that we can do some things to improve on that and work more with our neighbors as we move forward. But there's a group of 16 in there that really want to find topics to move forward. So if there's anything that you can think of moving forward, bring it back to me, and I'll be more than happy to bring it to that group and to discuss.
Mayor, one of the things that you all have not ever voted for to approve since I've been here is the local area gas tax. And that is, I explained the last time we voted no, was that we're the city managers group is honing in on that, but that might be something that we spearhead and get ahead of. Alan's working the subcommittee and the city managers group on that, but that's going to come up anyhow. That might be something to float out there earlier rather than later, because I find that when it's sometimes stuff like that, so the half-cent sales tax was mentioned yesterday, and so it'll be mentioned, it'll be kicked around, it'll be discussed, we'll all look at each other, and we'll decide to do it 60 days prior to the election, and it'll be too late. So maybe we get ahead of this local area gas tax and start getting the elected officials at the round table to start thinking about it, so when it comes up in the brief, it's not, well, let's kick it around for a while, let's think about it, let's send it back to a committee, and then it's too late, and we end up voting no for another 5 years.
Do me a favor, why don't you, me and Alan, I'd kind of like
Sit
to know
down.
what the conversations at your level have been, but yeah, I'm no problem bringing that
Right.
up for discussion now.
Right.
At the next time we get together, I will request that be a discussion item moving forward. And like I said, if there's anything else, gang, let me know. So if there are things that people are willing to work together on, I think now is a great environment and a great time to do it. With that, any other business coming before us in this short meeting this evening? The short agenda? Okay, so the agenda was short. We got a lot done. Everybody have a good night. Thank you.